It is the Martha Zoller Show, and it's always great to be here. It's been a busy week, but we're kind of capping it off on a Thursday with a very important guest. Speaker Jon Burns is here with us today, live in the studio today. We no topics are off limits, but what we're going to ask you to do, if you have a question for the speaker, text it in at 770-535-2911. That way we can make sure that all your questions get asked. So we want you to be a part of that. Speaker Jon Burns, welcome, and thank you for being in Gainesville.
Well, Martha, it's a pleasure to be with you always, but it's certainly a pleasure to be in Gainesville in northeast Georgia. What a great part of our state. Great leadership has come from this area that's really led Georgia in a very positive manner, and we're so glad to be here. And congratulations on 75 years with WDUN.
Yeah,
wow.
I'm not with WDUN 75 years, but we've been here 75
I know
years.
the feeling.
So, first of all, before we get into the issues under the Gold Dome, you were here for a very special event in Blue Ridge yesterday. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we were there celebrating North Georgia University, but more importantly, we were there celebrating the impact that Speaker David Ralston had on this part of the state and on our entire state. A huge champion for North Georgia. It was his alma mater. And Speaker Ralston loved the mountains. He loved Blue Ridge, and he loved this part of the state. And the many things he did during his career in the legislature and around our state, as in the Senate and in the House, really were impactful. And not only on our state, but I'll just say this first, on myself, my wife Dale, what a true champion he was for Georgia, and how he imparted those values into us, that our public service was enhanced because of our friendship with him. But his work on mental health is something that the House continues to work on, and we will continue that in that tradition. I like to say a story seldom told is soon forgotten, and I think the naming of the buildings at North Georgia campus at Blue Ridge is something we'll continue to tell that story of David Ralston and his impact on Georgia.
And there were, 4 governors there? Current and previous?
It was amazing. Governor Barnes, Governor Perdue, Governor Deal, and, of course, Governor Kemp were there. I thought that was a huge tribute to his legacy and his work for the people of Georgia. He was a true public servant.
Yeah, I just love David Ralston. He was a very helpful person, and I can tell this story now because it's been a while. But when I ran against Doug Collins for Congress, David and I had a very good relationship. So, of course, I called him, just like, I would. And he said, well, Martha, I can't really come out and support you because we've got a member of the body running. He says, but here's 10 names you can call and tell them that I told them to call. And, that was the kind of guy he was. He thought we were all on the same team. So let's figure out how to make everybody, or as many people as we can, be successful.
Exactly. And I saw his work over the years, especially serving as majority leader, how he reached across the aisle to make sure that he did what we could pass the best policy for Georgia. And I think about his friendship with Calvin Smyrie. A true leader in the minority caucus over the years, and a true champion for Georgia as well. But that relationship helped pass many meaningful pieces of legislation. But he knew how to get the job done. He was a strategist. He reveled in it. He loved it. And that I can hear that booming voice right now that commanded attention and commanded respect. And we miss him dearly, but we certainly believe that we're doing the right thing. We're carrying on some of the things that he worked so diligently on over the years.
So right now we are going through that time of the year where there's study committees going on all over the state on different issues. I know there's one in Oconee County on gaming. There's different ones in different areas. So how do you watch those? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you care about what's going on in these study committees and you stay abreast, but how do you prioritize that?
We try to attend the ones that we're able to when we're in areas, but then we certainly talk to the chairman, and certainly all of those study committees, their work is on social media, is broadcast, and so we keep up with it that way. But staff members are always present in those committee meetings, and that's what the House does. We're doing what we're supposed to do. We're trying to formulate good policy that we can take up in January by ensuring that we have the facts on some very important, complicated issues. And so that's what we're doing.
So theoretically, members of the Georgia House are part-time employees, but we know that the Speaker of the House is not, and also anybody that is a legislator, they're always having to do things related to that job. But I had the question this morning say, what does the Speaker of the House do? And so I know that's a basic question, but let people know what you do and what your life is like.
Well, we do things like today that we really enjoy to let people know what we're doing and what we're about and where we're trying to lead this state. Certainly working with other state officials in leadership positions and certainly with members. But, I never forget where I came from. House District 159. It's about public service for myself and for Dale, my wife. So we're continually focused on making sure we hear from our local folks. We're engaged in my community just as I was before I was in leadership. So that's part of what we do. But we lend ourselves to issues around the state, meeting with different groups, interest groups, community groups, to ensure that we understand and we stay in touch what is important to Georgians, what makes their lives better. And we're committed to that because it's about our future.
And Speaker Burns is from one of my favorite parts of the state. When I was working for Senator Perdue and for Governor Kemp, I traveled all over the state on their behalf, and that's where I first met Speaker Burns, was down in District 159, and he's from that part of Georgia, that kind of southeast part of Georgia, and it's an important place to be from, and it's where Georgia was born, really, was in Savannah.
Absolutely.
In that first area was where it was first settled.
1733.
So let's get into the issues now. The number one thing I hear about and get questions about is related to tax policy. We got a bunch of candidates that are running on getting rid of the income tax. We did lower the rates this past year. So what are your thoughts on where we're going with tax policy?
Well, we certainly support reducing or eliminating the state income tax. That's not an issue, but it's how we continue to provide the services that are essential to our state when it comes to education, public safety, health care, that we must maintain a revenue stream to ensure that we do that. Now, we're open to listening to a lot of ideas about how we may accomplish lowering the income tax rate more. But the truth is, with Governor Kemp, working closely with him, we've invested $1 billion last year, this year, to continue to drive down our state income tax rate. And I believe very strongly that we will do that again in 26 as we drive that income tax rate down below 5%. I think the House has a plan that we've worked on over the years, and we've always been very forthright on that. We want to continue to take the income tax rate lower because we know what you know and what your listeners know, that money is better spent and more wisely spent in the hands of Georgians, school teachers, policemen, farmers, factory workers, poultry workers here in Gainesville than it is by our government. It's more efficient. And so we believe that, and we're convicted of that, and we're going to do just that. We're going to continue to work that way, and we'll work with some good ideas, but we're going to ensure, though, that we provide the services that are essential to the quality of life in our state. Well, hardworking Georgians, as they like to say.
Well, and you think about where we've come from when Governor Deal came into office. I think the rainy day fund was like $100 million. I mean, because we were at the height of the economic crash that had started in 2008, and I remember Governor Perdue saying that he was looking at every quote pot of money to try to keep things going. And then now we're at a place where we have just year after year we have had good surpluses, good rainy day funds. We get a lot of money from the feds, which we'll talk about, in another segment. But it's a big swing from where we were in 2010 and where we are today.
Georgia is doing very well. Southeast Georgia, where I'm from, as you mentioned, is certainly doing very well with economic development. As I travel around Northeast Georgia, all the great things I see here that are happening, great economic development here, Northeast Georgia health systems. I mean, that doesn't occur if there aren't good things and prosperity in this area, and certainly all across our state. And yes, we have been very blessed to accumulate a rainy day fund, a surplus. I like how the governor is addressing it, and the House fully endorses what he's doing as we supported him for these one-time expenditures, whether it be in reducing income tax rate, and also returning money back to local folks, and another $1 billion we returned back in a $500 rebate for a couple filing jointly. That does certainly help with their property tax rates, and making sure and doing them as one-time expenditures, so we're ready for when that day comes when we're going to see a downturn. The economy is always in cycles, and we know that day's coming. And certainly Governor Perdue and Governor Deal dealt very wisely with the hand they were dealt, and certainly set the stage for us to build our economy and build our state state to the place we're at now.
We're talking to Speaker Jon Burns, and he's going to be with us for the full hour. If you have a question for him, please text it to us at 770-535-2911. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about schools, school security, and education when we come back on the Martha Zoller Show. We are here with Speaker Jon Burns, and we're so excited to have him here today. We got a couple of questions from you on text messages, which we will get to in just a moment. But first, I wanted to just talk to him about school safety and about those kinds of things that are being implemented this year that were passed last year.
Well, we are excited about House Bill 268 that sponsored by Representative Hope Persinger from Barrow County, who had firsthand certainly experienced with his constituents and his family the tragedy at Appalachia High School. That certainly is put it first and foremost in our minds, and certainly the efforts of we've taken with school safety is, be frank with you, there were a couple of number one priorities, but for me and I think for the House, our number one priority was school safety, and will continue to be as we look at what we can do is putting $68,000 per school, working with the governor, that would be spent and decided upon, has invested in those schools for school safety in every school in Georgia, every school. So, and that will be continuing. So we're proud of that. When we look at the root causes, mental health, and what we're doing to continue to follow up and strengthen our mental health with our counselors, recognizing when there are issues with our students. When those growing up years are difficult years in the best of circumstances, but certainly with the pressures now. And also another thing that helps, that contributes to that, those pressures growing up, is we've limited cell phone usage in 1 through 8, and so we're working with our local school systems to limit that, take those out, and we'll look at what we can do, see how that works, see what the benefits of it are. We think we understand what those benefits will be, and that'll be our ongoing progress. Certainly working with SROs, with training, and we're seeing technology make tremendous impacts on how we deal with these tragic situations, and we will continue to be looking at and embracing technology as we work with our school systems and working together, sharing information so we know when a student transfers from one school system to another, we know what's going on with that student before, not a month after they're entered into a new school, but just a couple of days.
So we've got a couple of questions that came in, and Alan in Rabun Gap had a question about Georgia Power and return on equity. But Alan, I'm going to defer that question to 10:30 when I've got Tricia Pridemore here. She's going to be here with me at 10:30, and I think she would be a better person. Not that you don't know the ins and outs of all of that, but since she's from the PSC, I think she'd be a better person to answer that question. So Alan, hang on and stay with us. We will get to your question on that. The second question from a listener was, do you support or propose zero-based budgeting for Georgia and help create a Doge team that Brian Will, Senate candidate in the 22nd District, is proposing to establish if he's elected?
Well, just for information, Chairman Steve Tarvin, we're reviewing everything that we do in the House now as he chairs his committee. We've done that for years, and we basically have zero-based budgeting in the state now as we look at the accountability from agencies and our oversight and our review of those budgets. But Chairman Tarvin is doing an excellent job. He's given us a report back and really doing something that we've probably not done as good a job of as we should, but we're following up on how the budget impacts those different areas of state government to ensure that we're really getting everything we expected to get on those investments into what our state agencies are doing.
Do we look at every line every year, or is there like a rolling cycle? There used to be a rolling cycle where a department a year is what you looked at.
It's more of a rolling cycle.
Yes.
But we do have the resources within our oversight that we are looking very closely. And we work very closely in our budgetary committee. I'm going to tell you, they leave no stone unturned when it comes to appropriations. Matt Hatchett and his team, they are looking at every line, every dollar. And I'm very proud of what we're doing there. And we're trying to ensure that where we need dollars, we're investing them there in a very a way that is we will get the greatest return and also get the job done. And that team is really phenomenal. and we review that regularly during the session and before we get into and then even more intensely when we get ready to pass a budget, whether it's the amended budget or the big budget. So we have great oversight into our budgetary process, and certainly that's budgets originate in the House. So we take that responsibility very seriously, and so we're focusing on our budget, and I believe our team is second to none.
So another question about the $250 tax rebate, and I know it's $500 for couples. Has it gone out, and how is that being paid? Do you know that?
Yes, it's gone out, and I'm not sure if they're actually getting a check. I think most people are getting a direct deposit into their account.
If that's how they get their money back,
yeah, that's
yes.
right. If that's
yes. So do you get a notification? Because I've heard this from several people, is they're not sure if they've gotten it or not, and they, with people doing direct deposit, a lot of times they don't pay as close attention. So is something sent out about it?
Yeah, I'm not sure on that either.
Okay.
But here's what I suggest to them. This is what we do as state reps. If a constituent has an issue and they're not sure of with a state agency, give their state rep a call, and they will be more than glad. He or she will be more than glad to ensure and check with Department of Revenue to make sure that person's dollars have gone out. We can't. They will not tell us the personal information,
right,
obviously, but they can determine if that rebate has gone back out.
And I want to just reiterate what the speaker just said is that I know a lot of us think about things, call your congressman, call your senator, and that's all important if you're dealing with federal agencies. But with local state agencies or state problems, you have a state rep, you have a state senator, you also have county commission members and city council members, and there's lots of opportunities for you to talk to somebody that can help you with your problem. So don't always think you got to go the federal route to do that you guys have people that'll take your questions, and it's a great place to start because that local representative has your best interest at heart.
Oh, exactly. And that's why most of us serve, is because of that relationship with our neighbors, if you will, and helping solve problems and with our neighbors and with our constituents. But the other thing I would encourage too, if you do have a federal issue, that is not our bailiwick to do that. But members do have great contacts with our congressmen, and they're very receptive. Their offices are to helping solve the problems and get answers for Georgians.
What is it that your office gets the most calls about? Is there something that pops out, or are there a number of things?
No, there's really one main thing right now, and that's licensure.
Okay.
And renewals of licensure. It's really one of those things that we really shouldn't be getting calls about, but the process right now on licensure and renewals is very difficult. We had a blue ribbon panel last year that we think helped solve some of those issues, but it's an ongoing problem, and we're continuing to look at what we can do to help streamline that process, working with the Secretary of State's office and working with all the licensure bureaus. But that's one of those things. We encourage people to come to Georgia. We need a workforce, but by golly, when they get educated and they need to get licensed, that should not be the holdup. And so we're very adamant that that's one of the things we're working on. We work very diligently on that, spend a lot of time on it, but we want Georgians to be licensed when that's appropriate so they can get to work.
I hear from a lot of the young people that I mentor that they are very frustrated with how, and this isn't something we can control, but how jobs are looked for today, that everything's these online applications. They feel like they're not even getting a chance to get in front of somebody. And I'm seeing sort of a shift to more face-to-face again. Are you seeing that in your dealings?
I see job fairs all around.
Yes.
And there's a great opportunity. I see our technical college system also organizing employers in the area, especially in areas that technical college may focus on in the programs it offers to bring in that potential. But, of course, I live near the port in Savannah. I see a lot of things happening, outreach from the Ports Authority, from Gulfstream, some of our major employers in the area, and even smaller manufacturers that are out there trying in the school systems. Hey, they're doing a lot of innovative things, and with young people, bringing them in to allow them to get some experience and help build that relationship so maybe they'll be an employee.
We're talking to Speaker Jon Burns, and we look forward to talking more. We've got questions from Jeff in Oconee County and Alan in Rabun Gap, so we've got a lot more to come. It is the Martha Zoller Show. We are so happy to be here with Speaker Jon Burns, which is arguably, one of the most powerful people in Georgia. He won't agree to that, but I'm going to say that he is, and it's because not only he's the speaker, but he's a person that will talk to anyone. He is a person that cares about the people of Georgia, And it was funny the first time we met, or we thought it was the first time we met. We're both looking at each other going, we've met before. And then we found out that we met when I was working for Senator Perdue.
Down in South Georgia.
Down in South Georgia. I loved South Georgia, but that was always a 3 or 4 day trip. People do not realize how big Georgia is until you have to travel it, right?
That's a fact. By the way, I'm not a boss of anything. My wife Dale is a boss in my home, and so I have lots of bosses in the Georgia House of Representatives. So, but it's good work.
Yeah, you bring people together. You collaborate. That's what you do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Jeff in Oconee County said, I attended the House Gaming Study Committee hosted by Chairman Marcus Wiedauer on Monday in Oconee County. Alan Powell made an interesting comment when he said if gaming is legalized in Georgia, he'd like to see proceeds go towards health care. This committee will meet 3 more times. What will the speaker focus on as he reviews the findings of the gaming committee?
Well, we've had a robust discussion on gaming over the last couple of years. It's been an idea that we've discussed, and we've batted around on how it fits for Georgians. And as always, there's pros and there's cons. And certainly this committee is going to examine and listen to all of those as we look to have all members be educated on what those pros and cons are. And that's just what we'll do. Now, where you focus the proceeds from some sort of for revenue that comes from some sort of gaming has been up for debate. I on the Republican side, I've had any number of specific requests or thoughts where those dollars may go. On the other side of the aisle, I see a broad-based need and request where those dollars would go. I think it's going to take a good conversation, some give and take between the members to decide, make sure we have a good pathway for those proceeds to go to. And that's part of this discussion, and that's one of the things that this committee will continue to debate.
And do they spend it like 5 times? Because that's the experience I've had is that you think $100 million worth of proceeds are coming in, and you have about $500 million worth of suggestions.
Usually is. You're exactly right on that, and that's one of the reasons that part of it needs to be discussed too. Not only whether you put it on the ballot, but also the enabling legislation that decides where the dollars are going, and that has to be a part of the discussion the way I see it, because people need to understand what they're voting for or what they're advocating for totally, and I think that's part of this. Because again, as I say, there's pros and cons on everything in life, and this is no exception to that rule.
So we got a comment in from Will Schofield, who's the superintendent of Hall County Schools. He said to thank you on behalf of Hall County Schools for recognizing the root cause of school safety issues, which is mental health.
Oh, absolutely. But we not only recognize in our school systems, we see evidence of that in society in general now. Look, I'm an ag guy, agricultural guy. So we see the stresses on farmers here in Northeast Georgia and around the state, and the impacts can have there. We're just talking to a member this morning, just the stresses of life now. And we recognize when someone's suffering from mental health issues. I think the First Lady of Georgia, Marty Kemp, said it's all right to say you're not all right. And that's one of the things we need to be, and what Speaker Ralston advocated, mental illness should be treated like any other illness. And so we realize that, and we'll continue to focus on providing resources for those issues that impact Georgians. Homelessness in Georgia. We know all of those are related to mental health, and I think we can make a difference, and we are making a difference, but we can do more.
We got we wanted to bring up that we're coming up on a year since that terrible Hurricane Helene, and give us an update on hurricane relief.
It's still tough.
Yep.
Generational damage across Southeast Georgia, from Augusta all the way to Valdosta and every part in between. It's I'm very proud of on 2 parts, on the reaction that we've seen from all over the state, with citizens of this state reaching out and helping other citizens in their time of need. I know members have taken numerous thousands of Boston butts down feeding people in South Georgia. I was with a group yesterday, the Siphon Logistics here in Gainesville, and
we helped coordinate that.
40 or 50 truckloads of supplies from this community and around the state that was sent to locations all across South Georgia to enable people to get by. until they get their feet back on the ground. There's still plenty of blue tarps on the ground down there, but I'm very proud of the state response. $1 billion sent and through various ways to ensure that South Georgians can make themselves whole again, and there's some more dollars on the way. The governor immediately, almost $200 million in emergency aid went out from his fund, and then the House and Senate, along with the governor, invested more dollars as we look at the issues that impact on forestry business, which is Georgia's the #1 forestry state in the union. We have to make sure that from a public safety perspective, that debris is cleaned up, but we have the potential, hot and dry as it is now across our state, for wildfires that endangers people's lives. So it's a multifaceted problem. We're looking at replanting so we can continue to make sure that we maintain ourselves as a great forestry state.
How has the federal government been as a partner? And maybe there was a change before and now, but how has the federal government been as a partner in this? They've
been a little slow. And they've, there's an allocation of funds, and there's been a little slow coming down. And I congratulate our director of the Georgia Forestry Commission and our Agriculture Commissioner, Tyler Harper, who've worked closely together so that we can block grant those funds into the forestry industry. Now, I believe that's very close to occurring. I think those rules and regs are all in place. Tyler has worked very diligently on that. Now, the dollars going to the row crop part of ag will be administered by FSA, by the feds. So I wish that could speed up a little bit because, they struggled this year through a tough growing season. Prices are low from almost all commodities, and it's been a struggle. And, the lenders will lend, but they need to be insured they will pay back to our farmers. So it's a tough time in agriculture in Georgia right now. And these federal dollars, especially in these disaster areas, will make a huge difference to us maintaining agriculture as our #1 industry.
Have our two senators been the kind of partner they need to be on this?
Well, I think they've been advocates. And I believe that's the case, and so we thank them for that, as they should be. But there's always an opportunity to work closer together, and in times like these with natural disasters, that's a real issue that no matter which side of the aisle you sit on, you should be willing to pull together. And there's always more we can do together, but there's been a great advocacy from Georgia for Georgians in Washington as well, and we appreciate all of our congressmen and our senators working together.
Alan and Raven Gap said, I'd like to understand this topic. Currently, we have we fund public schools under the Promise Act. Did we take money out of public school budget or just spend more money?
That was another allocation. We 100% fund the QBE formula now, so all of our public schools are funded.
And that's like 3 years we've done that?
Yes, we've done, absolutely. We've not done that for a number of years, but we're fully funding QBE. The vouchers, the Promise Act, is another pot of money that was set aside and allocated, appropriated, if you will, and that's where those dollars will come from. And I see that number is growing. Some of those students who qualify for the Promise Scholarship, and so we'll see where that goes. And certainly, we know that there's more dollars there that were appropriated now than probably will be used, but that's not a bad thing either. But I think the House stance was that we look for a little bit lower number, and of course, what we always do in an amended budget is we true up the cost, and that's not we do that every year, whether it be in education or other essential services, and so we would have done that. But where we're going right now, those dollars do not take away from the public school dollars.
Well, and I will say, and I'm the state board member for the 9th District for the State Board of Education, one of the things that I get concerned about is communication, whether we're talking about some of the things we do that help students, but also this Promise Scholarship. I mean, there's scholarships and help related to foster kids. There's all kinds of things out there. And I think that, it's a challenge because it's not just building a website and then people know what's going on. We've got to figure out a better way, I think, to communicate this stuff all the way down to, let me use one of the terms the kids use, the cellular level, so that people can understand what's going on.
I think you're exactly right, and certainly we have the opportunity in the House or in the General Assembly to drill down on a lot of these issues, and that's one of the things in the House with our communications director, Kayla Green, that we're working diligently on and really have a focus on making sure we get that information out, and that's one of the things we can do a better job. We can do a better job. There's no doubt about that. But I think that's one of the things we understand. And look, we want Georgians, if it's a good idea, we want Georgians to understand it. It's like tax credits for rural hospitals. We need to understand that, and we need to for Georgians to take advantage of it so they can support a good cause. But if you don't know about it, it's difficult to support a good cause. So yes, we can do better than that, and certainly I think some public service announcements and those type things on billboards, on radios, and on television, and just our members out in the communities telling our story as well.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, we've got one more segment with Speaker Jon Burns. You can text in your questions to 770-535-2911. Thanks for being with us. We'll be back. It is the Martha Zoller Show. We're in our final segment with Speaker Jon Burns. And, we talked about school security, and I want to circle back around to that because really over half the budget is for education, and it's an important part of the budget. In my role in the school board, I learned about Polk County. I don't know if you've been to Polk County before. I'm sure you have. But they have their own sheriff's department for the schools because they had a problem where the deputies kept getting pulled away because it's a smaller county. And so what they did is they came up with the funding, and they've hired a chief or a sheriff and like 12 deputies. And they work for the school system, and they've solved that problem that way. And that's what you're talking about with block granting and things like that. We need to give schools the ability to solve the problem the way it works for their school system because we have 180 school systems.
Sure, Martha. I can think of several situations where sheriff's departments and police departments, and whether it's in the schools in a city or in the county, where there are resources from the county that work hand in glove with the school system to provide SROs in some manner. But I also think of some counties that may not have but 2 deputies on the road all day long on a 24-hour time period, and that's where you need to look at the school system needs to be aware that safety is not there. So I think every situation can be different. I like to say every deal is a new deal, and that's what we see across our state because there's so many different varieties of situations when it comes to public safety. That may be a time that the school system really stands on its own.
So Patricia in Forsyth County said, would you ask the speaker what's being done to keep guns from coming into schools?
Any number of things. I think certainly we've seen some school systems now, they have metal detectors that students must pass through. I think that's a local decision. We're not mandating that from state government, but I think there's the clear backpacks, as I understand, transparent backpacks, and certainly the recognition that students need to be aware of their surroundings, as we all do. And if you see something, you need to say something. And certainly I think that's part of the school security issue as well. And also the presence of the SROs, the school resource officers, in those schools where they're very obvious and very the students see them, know they're there. I think those type things are all positives towards ensuring that no weapons enter the schools.
I mentioned to you the last time we were together that, my husband and I run this business called Correctional Nursing Services, and we provide healthcare services to the Hall County Jail, and we have expanded this year to including mental health services. Yes. And, with the goal of reducing recidivism by 20%. And I have to tell you, just in the short time, we haven't, the whole program hasn't rolled up, but we've added caseworkers and social workers and people that can help transition folks out of jail and back into life. And we're seeing progress. And so there are opportunities on local levels to be able to make big differences.
I think that, hey, we like a good idea no matter where it comes from. And I think those are the type of conversations that in the legal system, in the law enforcement system, the public safety system, and our school systems, and with state government, our members are on the ground. And they love to interact and get good ideas from the local authorities and local elected officials and from folks providing services where you're seeing a result. We have too many things we invest in sometimes we don't see a positive result. And when we see things ideas that are actually producing results, those are the type of things that we should invest in. Those type programs.
So we're going to shift your hat just a little bit here because you have a political hat too, where you want to protect your majority in the House of Representatives. So what does that lay of the land look like right now, and what are your goals?
Well, my goal, of course, always is to maintain a majority in the House, and we've managed to do that. Our state has changed and demographically, and we have good members on both sides of the aisle, and we work together on a large percentage of the time. Most of our bills, we do have contentious issues that we disagree on, and I think we do that respectfully, and that's one of the things that I'm adamant about. Say what you need to say, but do it respectfully, and that's what the rules of decorum in the House mandate that we do. So we'll stand by those. We will continue. We have some really good members. Some of them are nearing the end of their careers, so we're very positive, making sure that we educate the population on what service in the Georgia House of Representatives looks like and what it demands of you. And so hopefully we can identify good folks around the state that would be interested in serving their neighbors and serving in the House. As you said earlier, it's gotten to be a pretty full-time job. It's not full-time pay, but it's a full-time job because members are out numerous days every week in their communities. That's what it takes. You have to have a heart for service, and I think that's what we're doing, and we'll continue to do that. We're traveling the state. One of the things we're doing is we're telling our story. We're telling about good, conservative, common sense policies. The proof is out there. Georgia is moving forward. Georgia is successful from an economic perspective. Our young people are doing well. There are great opportunities for young people for work as our industry base expands. So we believe we're getting the right things done, and we're doing it the right way. We're managing our state. We have a surplus. We're engaging and investing those dollars where they are needed the most, and we believe we're doing it right.
So the thing I hate the most is in the House, and it happens in the Senate too, is when people don't vote. Okay, I feel like I've elected you, and I'm not naming any names. I've elected you to go and represent me. It's called a representative democracy, right? It's a republic. And I've elected you, and when I see people walk out during controversial votes or not vote during controversial votes, it drives me nuts. I think, why did you seek the job if you can't take the difficult votes? The easy votes are easy. That's why they're easy votes. You know, the 165 to 12 or whatever is an easy vote, okay? It's when it's close. That drives me crazy.
I can answer that very easily. I agree. That is our responsibility to put a vote up.
Yes.
And we're accountable, and that's certainly our process allows you to have full information. We introduce a bill, it's read on the floor, it goes to committee, it's thoroughly vetted in the committee. If you have objections, this is the time to make it happen. And certainly then we have comments on the floor. And I think it's just the right thing. And you ask for the job, so do the job.
Absolutely.
Put your vote up.
Now, if people need to get in touch with your office or if they need help from the Speaker's office, how can they do that?
They can call my office. It's 404-656-5020. And they call my office anytime. We have folks in the office that are excellent, and those messages come. They can email me, Jon.Burns, Jon.Burns at house.ga.gov. We will respond, and that's our job as well. And we will put folks in touch if we don't know the answer. I obviously have clearly demonstrated here this morning. I don't know all the answers, but
I think you did pretty well.
But we will get answers, and we will put you in touch with folks who can answer questions, and that's our job.
Well, and I think too, for folks out there, I know I grew up in an era where kids went to the Capitol, and I think kids are still going to the Capitol on field trips and things like that. I know for a while during COVID that didn't happen, but I just say to folks, if you haven't been to our Capitol during a legislative session, you should go. You can look for the calendar. I bet you'll find a day that has something to do with something you're interested in during that time in the session. If you're a University of Georgia graduate, if you care about agriculture, if you care about great steak biscuits that they give out sometimes, okay? So find a reason to go down because it makes it really, it makes it real for people.
Our page program has been revamped thanks to the ladies from the House, and I'll give a lot of credit to my wife, Dale, and so we have a great page program. New construction will make the Capitol even more citizen friendly. So come see us.
We will. Thank you, Jon Burns.